Hello and welcome on a new episode on Gamers Academy YouTube channel. My name is Outlandish and I played this game competitively for 4 years, but I decided recently to retire, partner up together with Gamers Academy to provide you guys educational content to make the best players you want to be. If you want to book with me or one of my colleagues individual coaching sessions, you can book us on gamers-academy.com. You can visit us in the homepage in the description below. On top of that, you can use this code to save 10% for your first coaching that you book. Today we will talk about the 12.9 patch rundown. This patch is not final yet, but we will just react on the current changes and we will see what it will bring to the new solo queue meta and the new competitive environment. All of that I will show you in the upcoming video. As already said in the intro, today we will talk about the 12.9 patch rundown. This patch is not final yet. There will be some adjustments based on the community reaction. If you want to be part of it, you can go on Twitter and visit Vlogs. He's always posting these patch notes and you can discuss with the community about these changes. But let's jump right into it. I think there are a lot of interesting changes for the upcoming MSI, and the first ones are the champion buffs. And the first one is Hecarim, I think a champion that was really overpresent in the recent meta, but they want to make him viable again because in the past few weeks, especially in EU Masters, he wasn't seen that much, and a lot of champions that are strong into him got buffed in the last patches, so they want to make him viable again. So his Q basic AD ratio and his W cooldown is getting reduced, which gives him more jungle clear and gives him just more power in jungle. I'm not sure if it necessarily gives him such a buff and makes him being picked again, because champions like Lilia and Karthus are just really overpresent right now in solo queue, and I don't think that this change will do a lot, but let's see if they will adjust that. I think the more interesting buff we have right now is the Varus buff. I think this will make every ADC happy. We had a lot. I think the ADC meta was kind of stagnating. We had a lot of. We had a time where hyper carry meta was really overpresent. We had Zeri, Apheus, Jinx. It was like this holy trinity of champions. Now you had at least Zayam, MF coming up, so more flexibility into this role. But now we have Varus coming up, which is a really interesting champion to me because he's flexible in his playstyle. Can be played as poke. He can be played as a tank shredder with his on-hit and with his attack speed. I think Riot wants to go into this direction. They're buffing his passive on the passive attack speed he gets from killing minions, the passive attack speed he gets from champions, and they're buffing his W on-hit damage, which gives him a lot of value as an on-hit Varus. So a really nice change in the combination with the next support that is getting buffed. And this is Braum, I think, a champion that is not really getting mentioned a lot in the patches. They're buffing his passive targets cooldown, which is really interesting because I think this is the most broken mechanic Braum has. If you auto-attack someone or hit someone with your Q, you're getting stacks on him, and after a few stacks he's getting stunned, and they're reducing this cooldown from 8 seconds to 4 seconds in the late game. I think this is a huge buff for him, and a huge buff for ADCs as well that are functioning with Braum together really well. And they're buffing this damage reduction on his E as well, which is huge as well. But I think the passive cooldown is a really big thing in later teamfights. If you can stun every 4 seconds from level 13 onwards, is a really big buff. The next buff we have is on Thresh, and I think this is really interesting. I think I've seen a statistic that Thresh is the most picked most banned champion in LEC, and in general, like one of the champions that's getting banned a lot in a competitive environment. I think like a lot of support players are known for this champion, and he was not getting picked a lot, and I think this was like one of the only metas where he was not really strong or pick or ban, so they decided to buff him. They're buffing his passive, they're buffing his shield, he's getting on his W, which gives him again more value in this meta. I think for me as a jungle main, it makes me really happy to see Thresh back in the meta because he's assisting jungle ganks a lot and has a really cool play style, and he's really unique in the way he's getting played. So this is a really nice buff, and I think 90% of the support players will be happy about it because at some point every support player was a Thresh main. So this is a really cool change. Let's talk a little bit about the champion nerfs that are coming. I think this is really solo queue based because most of these champions will not be getting played in the competitive environment. First one we have is Rengar. His W damage against monsters is getting nerfed, which will reduce his clear. I don't think this will change too much. I think every Rengar one trick will still play this champion and will have a way to be effective. I don't think this W was the crucial factor on the champion that made this champion really annoying to play against. I think his one-shot factor is way more problematic, but this is just the design of the champion. I don't think they wanted to touch that. The second nerf is, I think, especially an adjustment for lower elos. We're talking about Master G. His attack speed is getting reduced on his ultimate by 10-20% in the late game, which is a fine adjustment, I think, because Master G is especially and Platinum and lower getting played a lot. He's one of the champions that is like one of the first champions every jungler is trying to practice and is really strong in the right hands. I don't want to remember the pro players when the funnel meta was strong and Master G was so annoying to deal with. So I think this is a good adjustment for the lower elos and people will be happy about it. But every Master G main, I think, will find his way, same as Reng Nerf, to be effective. The third nerf is kind of sad, I think, because that Nidalee was in a healthy spot, or not the most healthy spot, more because Nidalee isn't that strong right now in the meta, and only really, really strong one tricks were able to perform on this champion in solo queue, and nerfing her HP is really critical because from 570 to 540 makes her being really vulnerable in the early game, and you need to be careful, especially if you're learning this champion, not to die during your jungle clear and not to get counter jungled in early games. So be aware of that. I'm not understanding really the purpose why they're nerfing it. I think Nidalee wasn't the strongest champion anyway, and I have read already some tweets from Nidalee one tricks that are really upset about this change, and I think it's not the most effective way how to deal with this champion. The next nerf we have is from Ahri. I think this is a smart decision by Riot because Ahri was so popular in the recent patches, especially in a competitive environment. She got picked a lot in EO Masters, she got picked a lot in LEC, and nerfing her ultimate is a really, really smart decision because it was just really annoying to deal with the champion. She had basically permanent her ultimate up, so they're reducing their nerfing her cooldown. That means she has more cooldown on her ultimate by 10 seconds in early and late game, and they're nerfing her E cooldown by 2 seconds, which is, in my opinion, the only smart decision I see in the champion nerfs from a competitive perspective as a coach, because I feel like Ahri was played too much and she was really strong in the right hands and she had too much tools as a champion, and I think it was just a logic decision from Riot to nerf this champion, even though she had a lot of counters already. So I think this nerf won't hurt her too much, but I think they're going into the right direction. The next nerf is something I completely disagree with, or I don't understand with, is the Renate nerf, because I think this champion is just got released recently, and it was not one of these champions that got released and were super broken, that everyone was able to play her, and she had an insane amount of win rate in competitive and solo queue. I just remember the LEC, I think was semi-finals or finals, where a Fnatic played her and didn't succeed that much with the champion, and I don't think that Renate was in a bad spot. I think Renate is really a champion that's difficult to play and is something that needs to be practiced a lot. And she has a really interesting dynamic and identity as a champion. So I don't understand why they will nerf her armor, which is really crucial for the laning phase. That makes her even squishier in early game. And her passive damage is getting nerfed by a lot, which I think is not the right direction to go with the champion. I'm not sure how the champion's dynamic is in a lower elo, because I feel like the patches are mostly for casual players and not really directed to competitive environment. But I don't feel like that Renate was the most broken support we have currently in the meta, so I'm not understanding really the changes. And the next nerf, I think, is just really sad for the bows. I think this kind of destroys his whole identity, because they're nerfing his zombie structure damage from 100% to 40%, and this is an insane nerf, like nerfing a champion by 60% by his damage, which like was his passive and gave him like a really unique identity to like kind of suicide and go for structures, which made like the bows famous and made him being so successful in solo queue, and a lot of people copied that play style. I think this is really sad because I feel like this is what made the champion interesting. Still, in competitive, Sion is just a really strong tank. He has a lot of value in the draft, and is just like one of the best tanks we have currently on top lane. But by them nerfing the zombie structure damage, they're nerfing the AD Sion, which in my opinion was a really fun dynamic and really fun to watch. And this was everything from like champion buffs and champion nerfs. After that, there are only a lot of champion adjustments. And just to clarify that, we will talk about that in the next week in the episode with the whole champion adjustments, because we didn't talk about Swain yet. And now Olaf, Talia, Pyke, and Renekton are being adjusted as well. I think this needs to have like an own episode of a patch rundown, and especially of these 4 champions. There could be more changes based on the community's reaction. So again, if you want to be part of it, discuss with White Vlogs about it, discuss on Twitter about it, because it's really necessary that we talk about it and we can find the best way to adjust these champions. Thanks for watching this episode of the 12.9 patch rundown. We would appreciate if you like, subscribe, and activate the bell on channel, or comment to leave us some feedback on the content we are creating, or discuss with me or one of my colleagues about the topic and the new changes on the 12.9 patch. If you want to discuss with me about that in depth, you can visit us on our official Gamers Academy Discord server. You can find the link in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye.